minute late. First, I will talk to the keeper of the Webex. Can you tell me who's on Webex this morning? As far as committee members?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. So far, I see Representative Clayton that is on the Webex. I don't believe Adam Thomas is one of the representatives, correct? Okay, but just Representative Clayton, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. I believe
Mr. Chairman, Adam Thomas here. I'm here as well.
Yeah, thank you, Representative. First up, for the meeting this morning, I'm glad to see everybody got up early to come in. Lost an hour of rest because of this meeting, but that's okay. I want to take up the approval of the minutes for 217, 218, 301, 302, and 304. Bryce, ranking member Reese.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a second from the Vice Chair, Representative Arnberger? Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor to approve the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. The minutes are approved. Is there bill introductions by committee members? Seeing no bill introductions by committee members, we will move on. We have a hearing today. We got 2 hours. There may be some other issues that we take up, some other bills that we have not talked about. Well, we've talked about them, but we just haven't been able to resolve them yet. So if we have time at the end of this meeting, we will take those up. With that, I will open the hearing on House Bill 2740, authorizing sports wagering under the Kansas Expanded Lottery Act. With that, I will turn to the reviser. Who wants to go first? Mike?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I've got a section by section of the explanation of the bill, which I will hit the highlights of. And just as a kind of an introductory word, the language of sports gaming, if you're not familiar with it, it's like learning a little bit of a new language sometimes. So anyway, with that, let's get into it. The Section 1 of the bill provides the Kansas Lottery shall offer sports wagering through one or more lottery gaming facility managers that have contracted with the lottery. They can provide sports wagering over the internet through websites, mobile device applications, through interactive sports wagering platforms, and the use of platforms at the primary facility of a professional sports team or other marketing entity pursuant to a marketing agreement. So the first section of the bill has got a mouthful that it provides. Section 2, each gaming facility manager shall be limited to 3 interactive sports wagering platforms that shall be approved by the executive director of the lottery. Sports wagering, you have to make sure that the person who is involved in betting is physically located within the state. Section 3, no person shall provide goods, services, software, or any other component necessary for determination of odds or outcomes of a sporting event without holding a license. The license is good for 2 years. Section 4 provides a professional sports team or other marketing entity may enter into a marketing agreement with a lottery gaming facility manager for promotion of the sports gaming. Section 5, the executive director of the lottery shall adopt rules and regulations regarding the advertisement of sports wagering. Section 6, The lottery may restrict, limit, or exclude wagering on one or more sporting events by providing notice. Section 7, lottery gaming facility managers shall use reasonable methods to prohibit certain individuals from placing wagers. Section 8, lottery gaming facility managers shall maintain records that are listed. Section 9, the state shall have a cause of action against any person who knowingly engages in or facilitates or conceals conduct that is intended to improperly influence a betting outcome. Section 10 provides that if an individual requests, they can be restricted from placing bets themselves. Section 11 establishes a sports wagering receipts fund to be administered by the Kansas Lottery. Section 12, there's establishing the Treasury a white-collar crime fund be administered by the government and to be basically criminal offenses involving illegal activities regarding wagers. Is the purpose of that. The Attorney General and the Executive Director of the Kansas Racing and Gaming Commission basically shall annually request the amount of money they think they need to do their duties under the bill. Section 13, upon receipt of a request to negotiate an existing gaming compact or a new gaming compact from a federally recognized Indian tribe, the governor shall submit notice of that request to the executive director. The executive director, once it gets that notice, shall enter into an agreement with the Indian tribe that made such request for the operation and management of sports wagering by the tribe. Section 14 provides for wagering on one or more historic horse races. It's authorized according to the Kansas Parimutuel Racing Act. The parimutuel racing or wagering on historic horse races shall be conducted only by a licensee at a facility located in Sedgwick County. The no historic horse race machines are operated at any facility that conducts live Greyhound races or simulcasts Greyhound races, and they're limited to 1,000 of these machines. Prior to the operation of any historic race machine, there has to be notice given to the lottery gaming facility manager of the gaming area where that would be located. And there's some restrictions on if they decide that they want to sue. There's some restrictions. They can only sue for their reimbursement of their privilege fee and so on. There is provisions in section 16 that the provisions of sections 14 or 15 are severable. So if the court doesn't like those two sections, they could exclude them from the bill. Section 17 is another section dealing with Indian tribes. Once they submit a request for negotiations of a gaming contract, the governor shall negotiate in good faith to enter into a gaming compact. No compact shall include sports wagering beyond the boundaries of the Indian tribes' lands. There's a new crime created in Section 18, the crime of misuse of non-public sports information. Section 19 provides that a criminal statute dealing with basically definitions to exclude sports wagering from the definition of bet. Section 20, the crime of sports bribery, is amended to include match fixing as a severity level 5 non-person felony. The section 21 is basically technical. Definition section is in section 22. It contains a lot of definitions that you would want to pay attention to. Section 23 amends the authority for the Lottery Commission to adopt rules and regulations and gives them authority to adopt rules and regulations to implement sections 1 through 13. Section 24 allows transfers from the lottery operating fund to the white collar crime fund in an amount of $750,000 a year. Section 25 makes it unlawful for the executive director of the Lottery Commission members and employees to accept basically compensation, gifts, or loans from any interactive sports wagering platform. Section 26, the lottery is authorized to, this is expanded authority for the lottery itself, not directly related to sports wagering, but it authorizes the lottery to sell tickets and shares over the internet or on a digital cellular network. No online games sold or conducted under this, and there's some exceptions to what they can do. Section 27 is technical again. Section 28 deals with lottery gaming zone contracts to include operating and managing sports wagering. The section provides that the state shall receive 20% of the sports wagering revenues received from wagers placed within the lottery gaming facility through interactive sports wagering platform. The state would receive 14% of the sports wagering revenues received from wagers placed in person at the lottery gaming facility. Section 25 deals with certification of officers and directors and key employees of lottery gaming facility manager. There's a technical amendment, at least I think it is. Every bill that I've drafted about gaming over the years has tried to amend this provision that says that it's a person that has an interest. Current law is 0.5%, and this would add it to make it 5%. Section 30, it gives the executive director of the lottery and the executive director of the Racing and Gaming Commission the ability to interact or to inspect sports wagering operations. Section 31 provides no person under the age of 21 shall directly or indirectly make a wager on any sporting event or otherwise be permitted to engage in sports wagering. Section 32 is amended to provide basically certain actions of persons that are involved in the, like the executive director of the lottery, member of the lottery commission, member of the sports, or the Kansas Racing and Gaming Commission, and so on, from being involved with sports wagering, makes it a Class A misdemeanor if they are. It makes it a severity level 8 non-person felony for any person knowingly to place a sports wager with access to non-public confidential basically information with access to through an agent using funds that are derived from illegal activity and so forth. Section 33 is amended to provide that it shall be the duty of the Attorney General and the Kansas Racing and Gaming Commission to enforce provisions of this section. Section 34, you get into the pari-mutuel racing statutes, and there's a definition of facility manager licensee to limit the facility to one located in Sedgwick County, which is covered in a different section as well. They've got a definition of historic horse race machine and so forth. Section 35 is amended to give the Racing and Gaming Commission authority to observe and inspect all historic horse race machines. Section 36 is a fee structure for applying for a license to conduct certain things under the statute there. Section 37 provides a 3% tax on total amounts wagered on historic horse races. Section 38 amends the statute dealing with racing schedules and simulcasting and so on. Bottom line is that you can simulcast horse races, but not dog races, if I understand it correctly. And finally, Section 39 deals with problem gambling and bumps the amount that is credited to that front from $80,000 to $100,000. I'll try and answer questions. Jason has got a section or a comparison between the Senate version that they've sent over, and this bill, which will give you the different positions of the Senate versus the House at this moment. So,
Thank you, Mike. What I'm going to do is have Jason go through that, and then we'll take questions of the reviser. Jason, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Yes, as Mike mentioned, you do have at your seat a comparison chart on 2022 sports wagering legislation. It does compare substitute for Senate Bill 84 as it came over from the Senate. You may recall that this committee further amended that bill and sent it to the House floor, and now it is back in this committee. The far right column then has provisions of House Bill 2740 in comparison. This chart breaks it down more by the issue and the policy question addressed in the two pieces of legislation. And so in instances where that policy is the same between the two bills, it simply says same, such as who is authorized to conduct sports wagering. As Mike pointed out, it's just the casino managers contracting with the lottery to conduct sports wagering through the Expanded Lottery Act. And then there is the use of the interactive sports wagering platforms. These are the mobile applications. There is an addition to House Bill 2740 to authorize the lottery gaming facility manager to request an additional skin. That's the graphic interface that the user interacts with when accessing the application to conduct sports betting over the internet. This additional skin would be specific to any professional sports team that has a marketing agreement with that casino manager. Moving on to page 2, you can see new to House Bill 2740 is a concept of licensing as sports wagering suppliers. Those would be the persons who are providing data feeds on to determine outcomes of sports wagers or odds services. They would have to go to the Kansas Lottery, apply for and receive a license to do so before contracting with one of the casino managers to provide those services. Next box in the middle there are the management contract provisions. Is basically the breakdown of the percentage of the wagering revenues that is retained by the state. You can see the comparison between the Senate bill at 5.5% for in-person versus 14% under 2740, and then 8% on online wagers under the Senate versus 20% of the revenues from online wagers on the House. There is no percentage under 2740 to go to the Problem Gambling and Addictions Grant Fund. But there are the same provisions to require the manager to acquire the equipment necessary for sports wagering on behalf of the state. Under the definitions in both bills, they're generally the same. There are a few differences noted there on the right-hand side of the chart under 2740, specifically sporting event. You'll note that that term excludes all Greyhound races, horse racing that's governed by the Pari-Mutuel Racing Act, and then events where the majority of the participants are under 18. The Senate version of that prohibits interscholastic sports events for kindergarten and grades 1 through 12. So it's a bit more specific in terms of those sporting events where the participants are minors. Moving on to page 3, those are really the key differences. And then I will point out sports wagering revenues is different in that under the House bill, it's simply the total wagers less any voided wagers or prizes. If you look on page 3, sports wagering revenues under Senate was the total amount minus the voided wagers, the prizes, and also less the federal excise taxes and any approved free play that the casino provides to the player. So all that would be excluded in calculating the total revenue from sports wagering. There are provisions in both bills regarding agreements with sporting entities to conduct sports wagering at their facility. The Senate bill limits this to those entities located in Wyandotte County that are part of that Star Bond district. So this would be the Kansas Speedway and Sporting Kansas City Soccer Club over there. The House bill is a bit broader in that it defines a professional sports team as any team in football, baseball, basketball, ice hockey, or soccer that competes at a major league level and whose primary facility is located in Kansas. Currently, that would only apply to Sporting Kansas City Soccer Club in Wyandotte County. The House bill also goes further and allows the casino managers to enter into marketing agreements with up to 50 other marketing entities. These could be other private businesses that might have an interest in promotion and advertising of sports wagering as part of their own business model. And so they would do so on behalf of the casino manager. All sports wagering would be conducted either through a mobile application at that marketing entity's premises or through a kiosk operated by the sports wagering manager, the casino manager. So the private business would have nothing to do with the actual conduct of the sports wagering. They would be simply marketing and promoting that part of their partnership with the casino manager. There's also in the bill, as Mike pointed out, I believe, a reservation of 10 such agreements with nonprofit, fraternal, and veterans organizations. And all those agreements must be approved by the lottery. Moving to page 4. Provisions prohibiting certain activities with respect to sports wagering are generally the same. The Senate bill has some provisions on allowing patrons on how they can fund their sports wagering accounts with the casino manager or the application. Those provisions are not included in the House bill. There are identical provisions, however, in both bills regarding the age restriction of 21, the ability for patrons to self-restrict themselves, and the restrictions on certain events by the lottery. There are similar provisions on restricting who can place a sports wagering bet. There are provisions in the Senate bill that allow a family member of a restricted person to place a sports bet with an unaffiliated casino manager or mobile application. That provision is not in House Bill 2740. On maintenance of records, there is a significant difference there. If you look under the House bill, there's a significant list of the information of each type of bet that must be recorded, must be preserved for 3 years, and must be made available to lottery and KRGC on request. The Senate version simply targets wagers of in excess of $10,000 over a 24-hour period, and just requires those be retained for up to 30 days. The cause of action for improper influence by the state is the same in both provisions. The state can bring an action under that. The regulations are slightly different. You'll note under the Senate bill, it's the KRGC adopting rules and regulations. Under the House bill, it's the lottery adopting rules and regulations. Those rules and regulations primarily apply to advertising and are similar in both bills regarding advertising and sports wagering. And then the lottery is also directed to adopt additional rules and regulations regarding the actual conduct of sports wagering. You can see in the Senate version there in the middle column, that list is a bit more descriptive as to what types of regulations the lottery is to adopt. The House version simply the management contracts, confidentiality of better information, and the integrity of sports wagering operations. There are provisions in both bills authorizing or directing the governor to negotiate in good faith if there's a request for a new gaming compact. As Mike pointed out, there's an additional provision under the House bill that allows the Native American tribe to enter into an agreement to manage sports wagering on behalf of the state if they are in negotiations with the governor on a tribal gaming compact on sports wagering. Moving on to page 8, These get into some of the criminal provisions, and you'll see the same on both bills with establishing the White Collar Crime Fund administered by the governor, crimes of misuse of non-public information, unlawful sports wagering provisions are the same. The amendment to the definition of a bet to exclude sports wagering from the criminal betting statute is the same. At the top of page 9, there is a difference here. 216507 is amended by the House bill, but only to add the term match fixing, which is defined in the bill, to that crime of sports bribery and set the penalty level at a level 5 non-person felony. The House bill does not do anything with the existing crime of tampering with the sports contest. As you see, the Senate increases the penalty level for that crime in the Senate version. The House does have a provision authorizing both the Attorney General and Racing and Gaming Commission to prosecute crimes involving gray machines. That is not included in the Senate bill that came over. And then you can see there are restrictions. One, there's an authorization of both bills for the Kansas Lottery to do online lottery tickets. These would be through like a mobile app lottery ticket. Both bills then also contain extensive restrictions on how that is to operate, but those restrictions are different, as you can see in the two different lists there on page 9 and the bottom row, as to which bill restricts what the lottery can do. Then finally on page 10, you see there's significant difference in the funding of Problem Gambling and Addictions Grant Fund. Primarily, the Senate had earmarked 2% of sports wagering revenues to go to that fund and had specified purposes for which those monies could be used. The House bill, as Mike pointed out, simply increases the annual transfer from $80,000 to $100,000. And then finally, there are the two added provisions regarding parimutuel racetracks that are not included in the Senate version, the historical horse race machine authorization, and the limitations and restrictions on parimutuel racing under those amendments regarding simulcasting of greyhounds and where parimutuel racetracks may be located. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jason. Great job. Questions for the revisor? Yes, Representative Arnberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jason, just could you remind us the purpose of the White Collar Crime Fund?
Yes, that fund was created to provide additional funding for the initially the Attorney General, but under both bills, it's now the Attorney General and the Racing and Gaming Commission to prosecute, investigate and prosecute crimes related to unlawful wagering. And so you're looking at those more electronic kind of illegal betting, money laundering type of crimes that are associated sometimes with unlawful gambling activities. This provides additional funding for both the AG and KRGC to investigate and prosecute those kind of crimes.
Okay, thank you.
I think we had testimony last year from the AG's office about the people are betting now, but they're betting online in the Caribbean and a number of places, and that would give them the assets available to hire special investigators to be online to kind of stop that offshore betting that is presently taking place. And that's the reason the amount initially, I think we started with $1 million and then we cut it to 750,000. Any other questions of the revisor? I'm sorry. Hoheisel.
Mr. Chair, thank you for that breakdown. You did answer, and Mr. Chair, with your permission, I have two separate questions. You did answer my question on the Problem Gambling and Addictions Grant Fund, which is great. My second question is the casino managers contacting with the lottery on page 1 of your breakdown. Are we considering the facility in Sedgwick County for the historic racing machines as a casino manager contracting with the lottery for the purpose of sports betting?
No, the historic horse race machine provisions are specified as being part of the Parimutuel Racing Act. And so that facility could open and could place historical horse race machines without being a racetrack gaming facility manager. And so the Expanded Lottery Act would allow them to be a racetrack gaming facility manager and place slot machines at that facility if they complied with all of the provisions of the Expanded Lottery Act, including the revenue distribution and the live racing requirements. If they choose not to do so, they don't put slot machines at that facility, but they could still get a racetrack facility license under the Parimutuel Act and place historical horse race machines at that facility under those provisions.
But they would not be eligible to have sports betting there.
But no, they would not be a sports wagering
Under
manager.
SB 84, would they have been allowed to have that?
No, the Senate's version of 84 coming over was restricted just to the lottery gaming facility managers as well.
And forgive me if I don't remember the House version number, but the original House version, was that allowed in there?
I think as it came out of the House last year, I think racetrack gaming facility managers would be allowed to also do sports wagering at their facilities if they were a racetrack gaming facility manager.
Okay, and with your permission, one last question, Mr. Chair. Does this HB 2740 allow all types of sports betting, so live sports betting or up-to-date sports betting as well?
Yes, in-game sports betting. There's actually, I believe, in the bill and the definition of sports wagering, there's a non-exhaustive list of the different types of bets that can be offered under that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Hauser?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, Section 28 deals with like the casinos right now pay 1% of the total to the county governments and 1% to the city. Is that going to apply to this online wagering as well?
No, sports wagering revenues are separated out from lottery gaming facility revenues, and those local percentage payouts are based solely on the casino revenues. As you think the traditional casino, sports wagering revenues are a separate type of revenue under this bill.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Representative Howe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Visor. I had a question regarding Section 18, material non-public information. Could you give me some context of how that, what that means in layman's terms?
Think of that as insider betting. You have information regarding a player's health or a team's certain conditions that directly would impact the performance of the player or the team on the field, and you make a bet to your advantage based on the information that is not readily available to the general public.
Okay, thank you. And one last question. Would this legislation authorize sports betting on collegiate sports?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Representative Hazelwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So with the Indian gaming in negotiations with the governor, would it have to open the gaming compact, and would that be its own separate legislative process, or is it fairly simple process?
Yes, so there would be a request by one or more of the tribes to either create a new gaming compact with the state just for sports wagering, or to open up and renegotiate their existing gaming compact to add sports wagering to it. That would go through the usual negotiation agreement process with the governor's office, the submission of that compact to the legislature, to the Joint Committee on State Tribal Relations, and then the ratification by the legislature of that compact to go into effect as provided by law. What the bill provides is, though, while that process is occurring, the tribe can go to the lottery and enter into an agreement to conduct sports wagering through a mobile application with the lottery on behalf of the lottery, and share in the revenues of that, the same as the casino managers are, while that gaming compact approval process is going on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Representative Hoyt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm looking at page 51, section 36. It has a reduction in fees. The application fee, $500 to $50, and for each day of racing approved from $100 a day to $25 a day. Is that the same as in SB 84?
I'm trying to think if Senate Bill 84 had any pari-mutuel racing amendments to it. I would have to go back and look at that to see if those were included in the Senate version that came over. I believe in the House version that was passed out last session out of this committee, I believe those amendments were included in that version of 84, but I'd have to double check about what came over from the Senate.
And either way, would it have a very big impact on the fiscal note? Because I'm just trying to decide, since we don't have a fiscal note on this House bill, if they're similar, if it would be a similar fiscal note to SB 84.
Those are licensure fees for licensees under the Pari-Mutuel Racing Act, and so I would have to defer to the Kansas Racing and Gaming Commission. We don't have any pari-mutuel racetracks really open currently at the state. There may be some impact with respect to the fair associations, nonprofit organizations that still conduct local county racing. We can make an inquiry with KRGC to see if there would be any notable impact on that reduction.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Representative Hornkamp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, am I understanding this correctly that it's just the casinos that can operate sports wagering, engage in it? Kansas Lottery itself cannot under this bill?
That's correct.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
No further questions. I'm going to thank you, Jason. Did a great job as always. Committee, I'll make a couple of comments. This has been in the process back when Senator Estes and I started this, back when I think it was 18 when the Supreme Court allowed cities or states to, other than Nevada, to conduct sports wagering. I wanted to compliment all the conferees here today on both sides. This is an issue that we worked on this past summer to get people on board. And I think we've arrived at that point. With that, I would look to the first proponent, Whitney Dameron with the Kansas Entertainment, LLC, also known as Penn National or Hollywood Casino. Good morning, sir, and welcome to Fed and State. I've got to restrict it to 5 minutes, if that's okay.
Works for me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sir. Members of the committee, Whitney Dameron, Kansas Entertainment, as mentioned, Penn National Gaming is a 50-50 partner in Hollywood Casino and also the manager up there. These remarks reflect their opinions on the bill. We've testified in front of this committee on numerous occasions dating back to 2018. We've had some differences of opinions with some of the bills that have come in front of this committee, and we've advocated for our own. What you have here today reflects what we believe to be the key components in bills we've testified in favor of. And we're in a position to come in and support House Bill 2740. I'll pick up on a couple of those items that are in the bill. Number one, the state regulates casinos managed. We've had some objections to the state being both the regulator and a provider of sports wagering. That is corrected in this bill. 3 interactive sports wagering platforms, 3 skins per casino, in property and mobile wagering, marketing agreements with up to 50 entities, including fraternals and veterans organizations, allows the retailers to have participation in this legislation. The no requirement to use official league data. We've had concerns with the way some of those provisions have been written. Certainly official data will be used as regulated by Racing and Gaming Kansas Lottery. Allow the lottery to preclude wagering on certain games, not the leagues themselves. The issue of historic horse racing is included in the bill, and that has kind of been a linchpin of how we've resolved some of the challenges we've had in bills before, dating back to 2007 with the passage of KELA. There have been proposals that have come from pari-mutuel track owners. Quite frankly, we did not want perfect to be the enemy of good. It was time to resolve this issue. There's certainly been differences of opinions on either side. Historic horse racing is a game that is being played around the country. I will leave it to the proponents of that section to talk about exactly what historic horse racing is and describe that to the committee. But based upon the restrictions in the bill, that applies only to Sedgwick County, only to the Wichita Greyhound Park, no more than 1,000 machines, no random number generator. We are in a position to be able to support that provision being included in the bill. The one objection we do have, or we do raise, is tax rates. Tax rates are a little high on this bill. We would hope that through this process, we have an opportunity to bring those down to something that's more, at least in line with what's happening around the Midwest, happening around the country. I believe Colorado is at 10%. Iowa is 7.5. Missouri may put a bill out of the House in the next week or two that would be close to that 10% number. But we do look forward to working with the committee and the House on what might be a good number that makes this work for both the state and the lottery gaming facility managers. In closing, I want to say I appreciate the efforts of the chairman, the vice chair, Majority Leader Hawkins, the governor's office. There's been a lot of conversations in the last 60 days, I suppose. A lot of versions of this bill have been circulated among a number of parties, and we've all had some input on that. And we do appreciate the fact that we're here today to be able to stand in front of this committee and support a bill that the chairman supports as well. So we do not take that lightly over the years, Mr. Chairman, but happy to stand for questions when appropriate.
Thank you. I'll finish the proponents and then we'll take questions.
Thank
if
you.
that's agreeable. Next up is John Federico, Sporting Kansas City. Good morning, sir, and welcome to Fed and State.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John Federico Durst Consulting Group, standing here as a very poor substitute for the president and CEO of Sporting KC, who developed a conflict. He asked me to just do two things. One is to thank the committee leadership for their continued support through this long, arduous process of trying to cobble together a sports wagering bill. As the only professional sports franchise in Kansas, they have felt that there has been strong support from the Kansas legislature to make sure that their interests, their investment in Kansas was protected. And although this bill will not create any revenue for Sporting KC, it was extremely important to them for two reasons. One, they see this as an opportunity to improve the fan experience for those attending Sporting KC games. The second is that they're hopeful with the passage of this bill that they will be able to attract fans, attendees of the game from out of state and perhaps even out of the region. So I'll be very brief and to tell you thank you. They are in strong support of this legislation, along with Major League Soccer. Happy to stand for questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you, sir. Next up is Becky Schwartz with Fuel True Independent Energy and Convenience. Good morning and welcome to Federal and State Affairs.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. I am Becky Schwartz, Executive Director of Fuel True Independent Energy and Convenience. We represent the convenience stores across the state. And like everybody has said, since 2018, we felt as the largest approved vendor of Kansas lottery games that we should be able to offer this in our stores. Our members appreciate being included in this bill as they feel this is one way to bring people into our stores and give them another opportunity to participate in the lottery or now sports betting. And again, they just want to thank you for including them in this bill and all the work on it. And I'll stand for questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you very much. Next up is Scott Beeler with Ruffins Properties, LLC. Good morning, sir, and welcome to Federal and State Affairs.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Vice Chair, to whom I offer my apologies for including the wrong last name in my written testimony, and to the ranking member and members of this committee. One of the Fab Four Beatles once had a song that was titled Nobody Told Me, but the famous line is Strange Days Indeed. And it is a strange day indeed that I would follow Whitney Dameron to indicate that I support the same bill that he does when it involves gaming, which means that a racing facility that would be located in Sedgwick County supports the same bill that Kansas casinos support. As I have testified many, many times in front of this committee and over on the Senate side, we all know that back in the Senate Bill 66 days of the mid-2000s, it was determined that there would be 7 gaming locations in the state of Kansas. 4 of them would be casinos and 3 of them would be racetracks. I am pleased to say that this bill does not change that. It's often asked, is this an attempt to expand gaming? And it's not. It is not whatsoever. The same 4 casinos are authorized, the same 3 racetrack locations are authorized. This one being in Sedgwick County would be one of those 3. And here, HHRs, which I'll address here in a second, are limited to that Sedgwick County location. So once again, this is not an expansion of gaming. It is simply a clarification of where and how it occurs. It is often said, and a question over here by the representative was asked this morning, if sports wagering were allowed in the Wichita track, would it be governed by the lottery? The answer to that is yes. And I would respectfully suggest that last year, the bill that came out of this esteemed committee did include the racetracks, the 3 of them, as potential sports gaming locations. It is my hope and my belief that perhaps that is an oversight here because it is not included for this Wichita facility, and it should be. As I said, all 4 casinos and all 3 racetracks are pre-approved by this legislature all the way back into the mid-2000s. So it is my hope that as this bill moves along and before it gets to our governor's desk, that can be modified and include the Wichita facility in the sports wagering context. Now, the HHR portion of this bill. HHRs are pari-mutuel wagering. I know that because the bill says so. The legislature can always define what is something in a state. You provide the definitions. And this bill says HHR machines are pari-mutuel wagering. Thus, that part of it, the machines, are governed by the Racing and Gaming Commission. So what is an HHR? HHR stands for Historic Horse Racing Machine. What is that? Well, and I want to contrast it to something that you probably know what it is, that being a slot machine, which is defined in this state as an EGM, electronic gaming machine. That's an apple. The horse racing machine is an orange. Why? Start with slot machines. Slot machines are randomly operated. They're based upon an algorithm that is programmed into a computer chip. And when the button is pushed, the machine and no one else randomly selects what comes up. An historic horse racing machine has no chance to it. It is not an algorithm. It is based upon actual historical horse racing results. What does that mean? Well, when the bettor goes up to that machine, the bettor has an opportunity to see for that particular race that's coming up what those horses have done. It doesn't identify their name. It doesn't identify the racetrack. It doesn't identify the name of the horse race because that's too much too much information and could give it away. They base their wager upon odds of that race. They put a wager down, they push the button, and the machine produces the results of that actual horse race. So there was nothing random about it. It is betting, and your bet is determined on whether or not your horse won. That's the reason it's an orange and not an apple. I just want to add that multiple states, including Kentucky, Wyoming, New Hampshire, Arkansas, and Virginia, have all approved HHRs as parimutuel racing. The only downside, not downside, but reverse to that, is where a legislature had not previously defined what HHR was as either slot or apple or orange, slot or HHR. And in those states, particularly Kentucky, most recently.
You need to close it down. You've had.
It went back to the legislature the following year, and the definition was added, and it's over. It's parimutuel. As I said, not only in Kentucky, but Wyoming, New Hampshire, Arkansas, and Virginia, and hopefully soon to be Kansas. I'll end with this state. This is a revenue-producing bill for the state of Kansas. That's what it is. It needs to be passed, especially since the gaming interests, be it casino or racetrack, are arm in arm on this one. Strange days indeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I would tell the committee, I did have Jason Watkins, but I understand it's written only now. Yes, it's in your files. I would like to direct the committee to the written proponents, just to give some clarification on each of those. Clark Stewart from Boot Hill Casino, that's not a lobbyist. He is the actual owner of the Boot Hill Casino as a proponent. The next one would be Bruce Christensen from Kansas Crossing Casino. He is also the owner of that casino, and he is a proponent. And last is Russell Bryan with the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation Casino. It's written only, but he is a proponent to this bill. I'm going to have questions of the proponents now. Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With your permission, I just have one quick question for Becky and one quick question for Scott.
Okay, Becky, if you'd come up.
Thanks for being here, Becky, and thanks for your testimony today. I guess I missed it in the legislation. Can you tell me how your stores will implement and benefit from the passage of this bill?
They would be part of those 50 entities that would be allowed through probably an app or a kiosk. So how it works and how many of our members would do it, I don't know. We have some that are still trying to figure out how that would work. But if it's a kiosk, they come in, participate, do whatever else they may do in the store.
Would you guys be allowed to do both tier 1 and tier 2, so the live sports betting as
I
well?
believe it's just tier 1 right now, but I may defer to somebody else that has that answer.
Okay, not a problem. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'm going to direct part of that question to Jason.
Yeah.
For clarification.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I just want to point out there are no tiers in terms of what type of sports wagering is conducted under House Bill 2740. So
they would
any
be allowed
type
to
of
even
sports
live
wager could be
sports
done.
betting
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you. And your second question was?
my second question was for Scott.
All right. Please come forward, sir.
Thank you, Scott, for being here today and your testimony as well. These historic horse racing machines, how often are they updated with races?
Well, that's based on volume, and they're updated regularly is what I would say to you. But the more they're used, the more they're updated.
Okay, and so when you're looking at them, you just are basically selecting the horses.
Correct.
You don't even get stats of the horses or anything like that.
There is some horse historical information that's available
Of those horses without identifying which horses
Correct.
they
It's
are.
performance information.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Further. Miller. Oh, Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For Mr. Beeler, John Lennon in Nobody Told Me also said, well, everybody's a winner and nothing left to lose. Does that apply here too? That's a rhetorical question.
Thanks
But-
for the relief.
But he also said, and this reminds me of this committee, that Well, everybody's talking and no one says a word.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Beeler. Yes, go right ahead, Representative Arnberger.
Thank you.
You've got to love Representative Miller's deep thought questions.
My question is for Whitney, just so I can fully understand. With the 50 that would be contracted out, the 50 locations, hypothetical, let's just say, and I'm looking at the Wyandotte area, you guys contract out with Buffalo Wild Wings. They have multiple locations. So is each location part of the 50, or is the whole franchise of Buffalo Wild Wings one application for your 50 locations?
I don't mean to shoot from the cuff, but that's probably a decision for lottery and racing and gaming. I think the way that, well, the way the bill is designed is they would have to be located within, for example, Hollywood, the Northeast Gaming Zone. So a question would be, if you had a Buffalo Wild Wings with a statewide footprint, could you leave that zone? I think the way the bill's written, probably not. But I think, you know, there's certainly opportunities to work creatively with those retailers who want to be involved with this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Arnkamp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for Mr. Damon and also one for Ms. Schwartz. Mr. Damon, so looking at the numbers, potential numbers, just from, if you can give this information, when you look at the total amount wagered, if you're anticipating the total amount wagered through the online apps, we're looking at the percentages what the state would get. What do you estimate on an annual basis to be the total amount wagered through the online apps?
Well, you're challenging my memory from some past fiscal notes. I know some pretty sophisticated studies presented information to the House and Senate committees that we could see upwards of $1.5 billion, $2 billion statewide. Back of the envelope was looking at a holdout of that of, you know, 50 million per billion, 5%. And then you start doing the math upon that. It's becoming quite ubiquitous around the country, you know, with 30 some states. So it remains to be seen what the public's appetite is for gaming and what it would be in Kansas. But those are old numbers from memory of the last few years.
Thanks. Thank you. And then if I may, a question for Ms. Schwartz. Thank you. So looking at section 26, and I may need clarification from Jason. I think I'm understanding this correctly. They say that the lottery, Kansas Lottery, can now offer lottery tickets online. Is that a correct understanding of section 26?
Go ahead, Jason.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, yes, it would allow the lottery to sell lottery tickets over the lottery's website or mobile device application, as long as those were in conformance with the restrictions listed there on page 31 of the bill.
Thank you. So when you say your the companies you represent would benefit from the bill, taking a look at maybe 50 being able to get involved versus the Kansas Lottery being able to bypass the retail locations and sell online, do you see a net positive or a net negative for your organizations?
I mean, I really don't know, Mr. Chairman, sorry. I really don't know how many of our members, that would offer it. A lot of our stores are going through that transition of trying to figure out how to incorporate a lot of new technology, new things, whether it be with the online gaming, even like our truck stops may have that on there. So I don't see it as a negative. If they have the online games, the lottery offers that, but we offer other games too. So they're still trying to figure out some of those specifics. Sorry, did that not answer your question?
Follow. So according to my reading, the retailers will not be able to sell lottery tickets online. It's just the Kansas Lottery.
Correct. I believe so. Well, currently we do not sell those online. So we just sell the physical tickets, whatever you see, that you normally would get at the lottery.
So the
kiosks.
Kansas Lottery being able to bypass the retailers, you still see this as
I'm
a
sure
net
a lot of our stores already have agreements with them, and I know they are working with us. We have some kiosks already that offer, I don't want to say online games, but like video games. So a lot of the stores that offer that stuff may enter in an agreement with them because we've already have those agreements once that comes in. I don't know that they would bypass us, but they could, yes.
Thank you. Last question.
Thank you. This is for Jason. So under the wording, would a retailer be able to enter into a negotiation with the Kansas Lottery to offer lottery tickets online? The retailer being able to offer them online.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, although there's not a specific reference to lottery retailers under those new provisions, I would recommend consulting with the Kansas Lottery as to how they have applied and implemented their lottery retailer agreements as to whether or not those provisions would apply to their lottery retailers under their existing agreements.
Thank you. Committee, we're going to move to the opponents now. First up will be Mike O'Neill, Kansas Greyhound Association. Mr. O'Neill, good morning and welcome to Federal and State Affairs.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Mike O'Neill, representing the Kansas Greyhound Association. To be more specific, we're opposed to only the provisions in the bill that we consider to be unnecessary and deal with the greyhound industry. This is a sports betting bill, iLottery bill, and we're not sure why we're impacted by this, but there are anti-greyhound provisions in this bill that we would like to see amended out. We understand from what the chairman said a little bit earlier that this has been a negotiated type of bill. I can tell the committee that we were not consulted with regard to this bill. And technically, we maybe shouldn't have been because it's a sports betting bill, and greyhound racing, parimutuel, simulcasting has nothing to do with sports betting because it's specifically excluded in the definitions. So that's fine. Unfortunately, however, there are anti-greyhound provisions in here regarding simulcasting and where this can take place. And so respectfully, we would ask that if there is an agreement on sports betting, let that agreement go forward. If there are other provisions that you want to deal with the Parimutuel Act, then that needs to be considered separately. Our plea, we're very proud to be representing the greyhound industry. It has a long-standing proud heritage in the state. It is a Kansas treasure. It's a national treasure that we have the greyhound capital of the world in Abilene, in the chairman's backyard. And before anyone makes an uninformed decision about the fate of greyhounds in the state, we ask you to at least take the opportunity to visit some of their facilities in the Abilene area. I can tell you my wife Trish and I, who represent the organization, have done that. It is a very humane, it is a proud tradition, and these four-legged athletes are an absolute treasure. They make great pets when they're retired from their racing days, and so I would just plead with you not to take action that would hurt an industry that's been around a lot longer than casinos have been. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We have one other opponent, Jim Garland, National Greyhound Association. Good morning, sir, and welcome to Federal and State Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. I'll echo a little bit of what Mike O'Neill said. Abilene, Kansas is known as the Greyhound capital of the world. It's also home to the Greyhound Hall of Fame. And the greyhound racing and greyhound farms have been part of the fabric of the Kansas agriculture community for many, many years. But here we are again having to defend ourselves at the Capitol. From the early days of sports betting bills in these chambers, it's been made abundantly clear that parimutuel racing is not part of sports betting. Yet every sports betting bill that comes up starts talking about greyhound racing, not horse racing, not just greyhound racing, but as parimutuel. We understand that there has to be some need for it because the desires of the Ruffin group to do what they want to do. And now we got historic horse racing machines thrown in, which have nothing to do with sports wagering as well. If the Ruffin group chooses not to operate racing or simulcasting in the location they want in Sedgwick County, that's fine. We're okay. We finally resigned ourselves to the fact that that's going to happen. But there's no need to exclude Greyhound racing in general or even include it as a banned simulcast on Greyhound racing in this bill. We just don't see the need for that. I also want to offer you that you'll probably hear testimony regarding some untruths about Greyhound racing such that it's banned in 41 states. Absolutely false. That it's cruel, unusual, and inhumane. As Mike mentioned, take a trip west about an hour and a half from here and come see for yourself before you listen to those things. This bill has been a little bit confusing and contradictory, but it just slaps one side of the pari-mutuel industry in the face. And we, again, would like to see the parts about Greyhound racing taken out. We're not opposed to what Mr. Ruffin's trying to do in Sedgwick County at this time, but it doesn't need to affect the rest of the state. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Questions for the opponents? Seeing no questions, I move to the neutrals. Crystal Blackdeer, Leavenworth County Humane Society on Webex. Are you there, ma'am? Crystal Blackdeer?
I am here.
Please go forward.
Okay.
I've got to limit you to 4 minutes because of our time.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. I am Crystal Swan Blackdeer. I serve as Executive Director of the Leavenworth County Humane Society, and I also serve as the Shelter and Rescue Representative on the Governor's Pet Animal Advisory Board. It's been the collective position of pet animal shelters and rescues over the years that Greyhound racing should not return to Kansas. The rescues and shelters, 40 of them listed below on my written testimony, indicate that they continue to oppose Greyhound racing. The following stated position: we stand neutral on House Bill 2740, providing no Greyhound racing provisions, incentive, or simulcast for Greyhound racing are amended into the bill. We do not have any position on sports wagering. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your consideration. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, ma'am. If you'll remain on WebEx in case there's questions for you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next up is Terry Humphrey, Stray Dog Policy. Good morning and welcome to Federal and State Affairs.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I am Terry Humphrey, and I am representing Stray Dog Policy today, providing neutral testimony on House Bill 2740. Stray Dog Policy is a pet protection organization and does not have a position on sports wagering or pari-mutuel wagering. Our sole focus is ensuring that the legislature does not offer any incentives or subsidies that revives the cruel and inhumane sport of Greyhound racing. Greyhound racing has been rejected by the public and unprofitable in Kansas. The current version of House Bill 2740 does not incentivize the return of Greyhound racing, so we are neutral. Nevertheless, we are very concerned that incentives to support Greyhound racing might make their way into House Bill 2740. For example, an amendment that would allow Sedgwick County revote on slots at racetracks would incentivize the return of Greyhound racing to Kansas. This is because live racing is a prerequisite to offering slots at a racetrack under the Kansas Expanded Lottery Act. At this time, we are neutral on House Bill 2740 for 3 reasons. First, It does not include a Sedgwick County revote on slots at racetracks. Second, it does not allow sports wagering on Greyhound races. And finally, it prohibits live and simulcast Greyhound racing at any facility that offers historical horse racing machines or HHRMs. In closing, we are neutral on House Bill 2740 as written. However, if the bill is amended to incentivize or allow the return of Greyhound racing, we will strongly oppose this bill. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, for your time, and I will stand for questions at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Brianna, is it Doura? D-O-U-R-A, National Council on Problem Gaming. Good morning and welcome to Federal and State Affairs.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Brianne Dora Shawal of Dora Shawal Consulting here on behalf of the National Council on Problem Gambling. I'm honored to be back in front of this committee. Thank you for having me. Who is the National Council on Problem Gambling? We are the sole national advocate for individuals that are struggling with a gambling problem. You've heard a lot of numbers throughout the years about all the economic forecasts of the great things that will happen for the state, many of which will come to fruition with expanded gambling. But there's another number I want to leave you with today. I'm here on behalf of the 62,400 Kansas residents that are currently struggling with a gambling problem. That number will only increase with any form of expanded gambling. Not only that, these numbers are conservative, as the state hasn't made an investment in a prevalence study of this issue since 2012, and that was before your fourth casino went operational. Last year, we received 2,395 calls of help to our National Council helpline. So, for that, we applaud any statute that would appropriate 2% of the revenue to go to addressing this issue of problem gambling. Not only that, we would urge that this disbursement be made of the gross gaming revenue, and you would be following in the footsteps of other states that have attributed a percentage of revenue to going to address this issue with legalization. We would also encourage that this money be explicitly earmarked for the research, prevention, education, awareness, and treatment of gambling addiction, as we know that that fund currently gets utilized for many other things other than problem gambling. A forthcoming survey on sports betting trends shows that sports bettors tend to be younger, more impressionable, and are 2 to 3 times more likely to engage in problematic play. With that in mind, we would ask the following: that your statutes include responsible gambling considerations, that there's mandatory responsible gambling plans by every operator, that there's mandatory training of staff, that information is given to players often and easily about their time spent, their money lost, and other engagement on the platform. With legalization of sports wagering, there will be a proliferation of marketing and advertising. This will normalize gambling within the state. There's a significant responsibility to also normalize and educate your children about what is gambling and the risks that can come with it. Other states have actually passed within the statute mandatory education within their school systems. As for self-exclusion, we applaud any statute that allows for an individual to be able to self-exclude from sports wagering shall they deem appropriate and necessary. All that we ask is that you please consider that players have the ability to self-exclude the very way they play. If you are engaging in gambling on your phone, you should be able to self-exclude from your phone. We also ask that through advertising and marketing, you consider things like restricting misleading ads, especially those that refer to risk-free. And all the ads should include a helpline and a responsible gambling message, ensuring that people know that help and hope exists and that there's someone to take their call. Thank you for this opportunity, and I would stand for question at the appropriate time.
Thank you, ma'am. Next up is Deb Situm with the Kansas Association of Addiction Professionals on Webex. Please come, start up. Go ahead and go forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Deb Stidham, and I am representing the Kansas Association of Addiction Professionals. We're an addiction prevention treatment provider trade association, which has been in existence since 1974. We are appearing as neutral to the proposed legislation to expand legalized gambling in Kansas. However, we do have several recommendations for the committee to consider, which we will believe will serve to mitigate the potential risks that can accompany such expansion. The addition of sports betting into our state will bring an unprecedented blitz of advertising to urge Kansans to bet instantly from their phone on every action, by every player, on every play, in every game, in every sport. Live in-play betting allows gamblers to bet on many more factors than just who the winner will be. This shortens the lag between bet and reward, increases the speed and frequency of gambling, which can increase the risk of problematic behavior. Countless studies have found the connection between problem gambling and mental illness and other substance use disorders. And as providers of treatment services to the Kansans affected by these disorders, CAP requests that in addition to directing 2% of gaming revenue under current law to the Problem Gambling and Addiction Fund, that this measure be amended to also direct 2% of net revenues from sports wagering to the Problem Gambling and Addiction Fund as follows in my testimony there, that proposed language. As we've talked about with the Kansas Expanded Lottery Act, when the legislature, passed that back in 2007, they understood the state's responsibility to provide for adequate funding for the prevention and treatment of problem gambling and other addictions. We urge this committee to consider amending the language pertaining to the Problem Gambling and Addiction Fund, which you can find in Attachment A. This new language would ensure that the original intent of this fund is fully realized and not for other purposes such as Medicaid state match. Because there are no federal funds available for the prevention and treatment of problem gambling, each state must decide what is an adequate amount. A 2016 survey by the National Council on Problem Gambling found that Kansas ranked 16th out of 40 states who have public funding for problem gambling efforts, which was slightly below the national average. CAP recommends that a minimum of $1 per capita be allocated to the prevention and treatment of problem gambling. This level of funding would have the potential of bringing state-of-the-art prevention and treatment programming for this often hidden disorder to the citizens of Kansas. The remaining funds should be directed to shore up long-standing gaps in the alcohol and drug prevention and treatment field, many of which were well articulated in the 2020 Special Committee on Kansas Mental Health and Modernization Reform report. I thank you for the time, and I'm happy to answer questions when it's appropriate.
Thank you. Questions for the neutrals? Yes. Is this another Beatles song?
No, sir.
Okay.
For either of the last two conferees, I'm curious as to why your position is neutral and not opposed to this bill.
Could we start with the National Council on Problem Gaming first?
Thank you for the question. Well, we're neutral on legalized gambling, and we believe that this bill has some strong provisions or starts, but could be improved in others.
Thank you.
Well, that really doesn't answer my question. Why are you neutral on legalized gambling if it leads to the problems that you're attempting to address?
We're neutral on legalized gambling because for the majority of individuals, people can enjoy gaming the way it was intended as a form of entertainment. We also know that prohibition won't actually get rid of gambling addiction. We believe that any time that there's an opportunity to expand gambling, that you do your very best to protect it in every way possible.
Thank you. That is the answer. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Further questions of the neutrals? Seeing no other questions of the neutrals. Thank you, ma'am. I'm just looking at this. Never thought this day would get here. We have 3 of the casinos, and Mike's been around longer than I have with these, to get 3 of the casinos on board, and really 4 with the Potawatomi Nation on board on the same issue at the same time. It's been interesting, but it is a big bill, and I don't want to work it today. I'm going to give you a few days. I thought about trying to work it today. I was looking at the time. We have time probably to do that. But I'd like to hear from the committee. You know, I chair this committee, but, you know, I only have 1 vote. It's like the Supreme Court. You're one of a number, and you only get 1 vote. You can voice your opinion. We've got all the members here. Let me ask you, I do have a couple of amendments to this. Is there objection to working it today? Representative Miller?
Well, I don't necessarily have an objection, but as to those 2 neutral conferees, I would like to have more personal discussion with them about specific amendments that they referenced.
Okay.
If you want to work it today, if I decide to offer related amendments, I can do it on the floor. So I'm not going to stand in the way of the bill for that reason.
Okay. Representative Orenkamp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Due to the amount of dollars involved, I would like a little bit more time to go through some of the numbers and prepare amendments.
Thank you. Then there is an objection. We will not work it today. I will have to alert you to when we will. I think I've had some conversations with leadership, and it may be Monday, but that's subject to change. You know, we've got a number of bills on the floor today. We're off Thursday and Friday. I'm not sure what they have above the line, or if they have anything above the line on Monday, but we will wait until Monday or later. Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, with the recommendation that you heard from Representative Miller, would it be advisable, or could we have those amendments made on the floor as well?
Well, they could. We could, but I'll leave it to the representative. If he wishes to lift his objection and bring them on the floor of the House, or would you like to do them in committee?
Mr. Chairman, I prefer to do them in committee, but being that I can understand the time limitations of the other members, and out of respect to that, I'll bring it on the House floor.
Representative Hoheisel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to give some input on this. I would rather, and I'll leave it up to the Royal Committee, I'd rather work this today. We've dragged our feet on this issue for years, 4 years since 2018. I'm fearful that this gets clogged down if we don't get it out, and then we go another year without passing this. That's another year where folks go to Iowa to bet. That's another year where they go to the off sites to bet. That's another Super Bowl. That's another Final Four that we're going to miss out on. We have a good bill here, a good agreement between all parties. I understand folks may have amendments. Those amendments can be ran on the House floor and considered there, but I would prefer if we move on this today in the interest of time. This is the second year of our biennium. We don't pass this, we start all over from square one next year. So those are just my thoughts, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. But I try to be fair to everybody on this committee. So we will do it Monday, unless you're notified of another date. I'm saying Monday today, but I have to get that permission from leadership to have the meeting Monday. And I can't tell you what, it could be in the afternoon. It could be in the morning. I serve at their pleasure, as all of us do on this committee. So we will not work the bill today, but we will work the bill when I get a time slot from the leadership, if that's agreeable. Since we have additional time, though, I would like to bring up House Bill 2708 that we worked last week and passed out at the recommendation of the reviser. Thanks to Kyle, who caught a big mistake. I think he has an amendment ready today. Is that correct, Kyle? So, as to 2708, what is the pleasure of the committee?
Mr. Chair, I move that we pass out House Bill 2708 favorably for passage.
I have a second from the ranking member, Representative Reese. As discussion, Representative Epley, you have an amendment.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Kyle's going to hand it out. We worked together on this to try to satisfy some really good questions that were raised in this committee about the wording in the bill and the oversight of the lab. In this, and I'll be brief, Mr. Chair, this amendment basically is conforming with what we've already passed out last year with the medical marijuana bill. So it makes language consistent with that. It gives oversight to ABC, and it makes the rules and regulations consistent on the laboratory testing. And I think it answers a lot of questions that were raised during discussion. You know, there admittedly was quite a bit of confusion on this, and unfortunately, the attachment amendment is pretty large. And so I'm going to let Kyle, or who he designates, review this with the committee. Mr. Chairman, if that's okay.
Thank you. Kyle, would you be so kind as to explain to the committee? We don't give you we don't give you a mic. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. As noted in my earlier brief on this bill, the sections here were taken from sections 23, 24, and 25 of House Substitute for Senate Bill 158. But even though these sections were lifted from that bill, there were some underlying mechanics that were not also carried over, including definitions, just a statement saying exactly who would license the entities, provisions related to fees, etc. And so this amendment, you can see through the attachment, includes provisions from Senate Bill 158 that covers those different issues. All of this, of course, is discretionary. It's based on what the committee wishes. But I suppose the underlying concern is that if the bill were to be enacted, how would it be carried out if, say, there's no definition for medical marijuana, et cetera? So starting with page 1 of the attachment, you'll see the definitions carried over from Senate Bill 158. And in the spirit of full disclosure, there are still some terms that would be used in this bill that were defined in 158 that would not be defined through this attachment because the definitions relied so heavily on references to other sections that are not in this bill. So I had a list of those. Caregiver, retail dispensary, etc. They rely too heavily on citations to other sections that are not in this bill. But section 2 of the attachment would just have the underlying provision that the director of ABC would provide for licensure of laboratories under the Act, specifying the form of the applications that would be submitted. Then subsection C of the section 2 of the attachment lists some of the requirements of accepting the application, including verification of a criminal history record check. And then a license would be valid for a period of 1 year. And then you'll see the fees, those again lifted directly from 158. And then section 3 of the attachment would have some of the underlying requirements of licensees from 158. They would have to be a citizen of the United States. They couldn't be convicted of felonies under the laws of the state. They would have to at least be 18 years of age, etc. And then moving to page 4 of the attachment, additional requirements by the director regarding transfers of licenses. Page 5, section 4, another provision from 158, distances from certain types of buildings. So licensees could not be located within 1,000 feet of school, religious organization, public library, etc. And many of those key terms are defined in section 4 of the attachment, subsection D. Page 6 of the attachment, section 5, that is the provision requiring a criminal history record check. And then section 6 is the provision that says prior to January 1, 2023, the director of ABC shall contract with a private laboratory for the purpose of conducting compliance and quality assurance testing of medical marijuana laboratories. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Epley. I just would like to comment. I want to thank the reviser for catching this and being able to put the clarifying language in it. And Kyle, you did a yeoman's job here. With that, I'll look to Representative Epley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Probably enough's been said. I just, again, I want to thank Kyle too, because this bill in its original form just caused more questions than it did answers. And when you, it's not a companion, but when you put it with Senate Bill 53, House substitute for Senate Bill 53, it becomes, I think, much clearer and more consistent with what the intent was for the laboratory testing piece. With that, I close. Thank you.
I need a second on that. Do I have a second? Representative Thomas is a second. You've heard the explanation. Again, I want to thank the reviser for catching that. You know, we'd sent it out. I did a motion to reconsider, brought it back in. It's something that now, I guess the term would be sings. It works together. As to Representative Epley's motion to amend, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. We're back on the bill, on House Bill 2708. Seeing no further discussion. Yes, I'm sorry. Okay. As to no further discussion of 2708, Representative, you may move your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we pass out House Bill 2708 favorably for passage as amended.
Thank you. You have heard the motion of Representative Arnberger to pass out House Bill 2708 for a second time, but this time corrected. As amended, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Yes, we did. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What was that bill then? Do you want to do that or not? It's up to you.
What's
Use advisory.
This one?
Right.
Do we need to get it first? Do they know what's going on?
No, I haven't told him yet.
Okay.
$22.67. No, you know. Mm-hmm. The Pacific Islander bill. I had that up. And my leadership says no. Tell you what, I tell you what, we won't do that today. We have another day. We're coming back. I don't know when, but we'll do that. That way, Mike, you can get on board. Anything else for the good of the committee today? I know we go on the floor in about 25 minutes. I think it's going to be a long day. Is there anything else for the good of the committee? Seeing none, please watch your emails, and I will make announcements on the floor about the next committee meeting. With that, we are adjourned.